Welcome to another episode of MicroShiner's Life Distilled. Brian Cary here, and I'm here with Chad at American Spirit Works Distillery.
Yeah, what's up?
In Atlanta. Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Chad. Excellent. Okay. So ASW Distillery, short for American Spirit Works. What do you do here?
What do we as a distillery do, or what do I do at the distillery itself?
I mean, I want to know it all.
You want to know it all?
Yeah, but first off, let's start with, okay, Chad, I gotta admit, when I first met you, I'm like, dude, this is a young dude.
Yeah.
You're a young guy.
And I have a killer fake ID.
Yeah. Right. No, but I mean, what you do is you got a pretty awesome program. I haven't tasted the whiskeys yet, but
we'll fix that.
How'd you, I want to know your backstory first.
Yeah. Well, so I entered the picture about 3.5 years ago, but the company itself predates me by another 3.5 years. So Jim Chastain and Charlie Thompson are the co-founders of what became ASW Distillery. They were roommates at the University of Georgia. They developed a thirst for whiskey there, and then 5-6 years after they had graduated, they sort of had this radical idea that they wanted to actually try to make some of their own. So they ultimately developed a recipe for a very clear, very mild whiskey, lightly aged, that they ultimately contract distilled out of Charleston for years, right? So that was really only distributed here in the state of Georgia, and the popularity of that just around Atlanta and Athens and a few other cities gave them the confidence to actually open a brick and mortar distillery. Well, so they didn't really have any distilling experience. This is kind of a capital intensive operation, so you don't really want to go into it with no experience. So they started looking for a distiller. Just so happened that Jim, one of the co-founders, his younger sister was friends with who became our head distiller, Justin Manglitz. Justin had been distilling at the time had been making craft booze at the time for 14 years at that point. So he had really dialed in some awesome recipes. And when he sort of applied to be the head distiller 4 years ago, he didn't give them a paper resume, he gave them a bottle, his liquid resume, so to speak. And that actually was basically the recipe for what became Americanic here, our single malt. So anyways, that was 4 years ago, and then they had to raise money and build out this whole space, order the stills. Those take 24 months to get. And I joined the team right before the fundraise, so call it January or February of 2015. And so it took 6 weeks to raise the capital for this place, and then it was off to the races. We started to build out, and we've been distilling here in the heart of Atlanta for a little over 2 years.
Wow. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So it goes a little deeper. This isn't. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you produce a lot of whiskey, predominantly,
Yep.
right? Do you do anything else?
We make an apple brandy from 100% North Georgia apples.
Awesome.
Mercier Orchards. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to go. It's up in Blue Ridge.
No, I haven't had the opportunity yet.
It's like Candyland for adults. It's pretty awesome.
Really? Okay. Fantastic. No.
But that's the only non-whiskey that we make is that apple brandy.
Okay. So did you ever see yourself distilling when you were a kid, I guess?
I didn't know anything about distillation as I was growing up. I mean, I'd heard about moonshine, but I never really made the connection that some of the land that my grandfather had bought up in Blue Ridge, Georgia, was actually purchased from the local moonshiner named Lester, right? So
right on.
that's kind of background that I was almost oblivious to. But I, right out of college, got really big into craft beer. Mm-hmm. And I had some friends at various breweries here in the state, and then I was trying to build software to help them basically with their sales. Okay. And they all said they liked the concept, all these breweries, but they just didn't have any money to pay for it, which in hindsight makes me think that they didn't like the concept. They were just too nice not to say so. Right. But anyways, that's how I got involved in this is I was like, well, craft beer and craft distilleries, craft wineries, maybe even craft cheesemakers, they probably all have pretty similar sales challenges. So why don't I expand my market? Reached out to Jim, one of the co-founders, one cold, rainy January morning. And so before this space was ever built out, we met in a mop closet and hit it off. And so I joined for the fundraise and the build out, and been here ever since.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So late to the game in terms of my interest in craft whiskey, but honestly, I think a lot of people who are into craft beer, craft whiskey is just sort of an extension of that. You know, it's just sort of a natural progression or whatever.
Okay. All right. No, that's a lot of fun. I feel that's the case with a lot of craft distillers. They just kind of they might not ever see themselves distilling someday, but some point down the road they just have some kind of itch where they just need to create and ferment, and then they find then they figure out how to distill, and that's such a learning process in itself that it's become such a hobby.
I will say this. So I head up marketing here. I'm on the tasting panel.
Okay.
But our head distiller, he has had that itch. His name's Justin. He's had that itch since he was in his teens.
Wow.
And so he got, I think it was a bottle of Macallan 18 for graduation.
Okay.
That basically sold him on single malts, and then later on somebody gave him a bottle of Green Spot.
Okay.
The pure pot still Irish whiskey. I guess they call it single pot still these days, but
Irish
that ultimately became one of his favorite whiskeys of all time. And so he ultimately started trying to create recipes to, at first, sort of mimic the Macallan 18 and the Green Spot and then Old Potrero out from your hometown, Anchor, that he really loved.
Okay.
And so that's ultimately like the resurgence here is it was the seed of the idea for it was Old Potrero, malted rye, right?
Okay.
100% malted rye, and then this sort of mimics a Speyside style malt, so not far off from Macallan.
Very cool. Excellent. All right. Well, that might be a good segue. Let's taste some.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, you do it in the order that you recommend.
Yep, definitely. We'll go down the line because they increase in proof as we go.
Okay, so let's talk about the first one then.
Yeah. So Resurgence Rye. This is, like I was saying, it's a 100% malted rye. So it's becoming a little more common. If memory serves me correctly, a distillery by the name of Old Pogue invented the style maybe a century or so ago, maybe even longer. And so it's going to be, when you malt that grain, we don't malt in-house, but by malting that grain, it's concentrating the sugars. So it's still going to have that rye spice, but it's a little more chocolatey than a traditional rye.
Okay. Oh, I see that. I like the chocolate. Yeah, that's a good point. We're describing that. Yeah, beautiful nose. Wow, killer finish. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's great. It comes on like a rye would, and then, but that's a real big finish. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. Yeah, and like you said, rich chocolate.
Yeah,
for sure. That's awesome. Okay.
Now, are you a rye drinker?
I mean,
everything.
Well, that's. I have my slogan. It's ESA, every spirit appreciated. So I mean, because I do. I drink it all. I mean, I love like crazy stuff. As far as absinthe, like I could enjoy a glass of absinthe. You know,
the Green Fairy.
Yeah, exactly. But then I was just in Amsterdam. Did a couple podcasts out there.
I saw that one.
But the Jenever, like that. I mean, I've had a few Genevers, but or Genevers even, is what they call it in the States. But going down how many different kinds there are and how they're produced, and that was kind of a trip. But no, to answer your question, I do drink rye. My go-to would probably be in terms of brands. I don't really know. Man, that's hard. But
I don't want to put you on the spot.
I know, right? I know.
Rye.
I'm like, wow, damn. That's a great question, though.
Right now, it turns out that you love Resurgence.
Right, exactly.
What's in your glass?
Absolutely. No, definitely. But no, I did drink rye, drink bourbon.
Yeah.
Don't drink too much Irish whiskey, though. We'll which is unfortunate, but I'm excited because to taste your version of an Irish whiskey.
This will be more like a Speyside style. Our Irish style, we actually haven't released yet, but I might be able to find a sample that we could potentially pull.
Okay, all right, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, well, I don't want to let the rest of this go to waste, so I will enjoy this, but now, describe to me this space a little bit. You kind of got like a cool thing going on out back.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? You got like I see like the AstroTurf and stuff. And how do you utilize this space? Because this space, first off, when I was pulling up with my fiance, we were like, where the hell is this? Where is this? It's like
see a tortilla factory.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's very industrial, as most distilleries have to be. But you also have like a cool little vibe happening here, where it's more like a hangout spot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so we designed, when we first opened the tasting room, we could only serve 3 half-ounce samples, right? So like little thimblefuls of whiskey.
Okay.
And even before that, a few years back, you could only serve a single half-ounce sample. So we have been, sort of making progress with our laws here. But because we could only serve 3 half-ounce samples when we opened the tasting room, we wanted to make it an experience where it encouraged people to hang out maybe a little bit longer than they would if it was just kind of stripped down bare bones. So we put together sort of a pretty comfortable lounge-ish style tasting room. And then in terms of the space here, it's the distillery itself, it's laid out such that all of our heating and cooling needs are set in this room, so our stills and our mash cooker, and then we do open top fermentation with no cooling jackets on our fermenters, so those can be there. So it's not necessarily linear in how you make it, because it's going mash cooker to fermenters back over to stills, and that confuses some people, but it's really because it was a lot cheaper to run all of your heating and cooling needs side by side.
Very cool. Excellent. Now that's cool. So yeah, tell me. Okay, so this is a good question.
Yeah.
The whole copper pot in Georgia, the pot distilled whiskey. You guys say you're the first to really implement that style. Am I right? Or did I hear that wrong?
So what we're doing is we're taking the pot still method, that's traditional sort of single malts.
Yeah, single malt, exactly.
And we're combining that. So when you're making single malts, oftentimes they are basically getting all the grain solids out of their wash, right? So what they're fermenting and distilling has no solids whatsoever in it. But in bourbon country, a lot of times you'll see those grain solids being left in there throughout the whole process. So we're basically, but in bourbon country, a lot of the big bourbon distilleries are using column stills. So we're basically taking pot stills that the single malt distillers use and the grain-in method that the bourbon distillers use and combining those, and that is actually pretty unique.
Oh, okay.
Because it requires you to have what's called an agitator, which is basically a little like impeller or propeller up in the still.
No, that's awesome. No, that's something it's so fascinating. Distilling is so fun to me. I've always wanted to get into it, but at the same time, I love learning.
Yeah.
I know, that's why I think chasing distilleries is more fun to me. But no, that's very fascinating, because I was about to say, it's like, first time to pot still in Georgia, really?
That's not the case. There's a great distillery over in Decatur called IDC that uses a really cool, like old school Olympic still.
Okay.
So definitely not the first to use a pot still in Georgia. We're just taking the pot still method and the grain-in method and combining them, and that's pretty unique.
Well, they're beautiful up there. They're definitely gorgeous ladies.
Thanks.
Fantastic.
There's actually a funny story about them. So your stills take an eternity and a half to get, right? Because there's just a back order on them. And so about 6 months into our production contract, Vendome, who they were made by, basically informed us that they had accidentally cut the holes in the catwalk too big. Well, we actually got larger stills because of it. So we went from 400 to 500 gallon still, and it was kind of like bank error in your favor.
No, that's a happy accident.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly.
No, that's cool. No, and you're definitely pushing out that kind of volume too, huh?
Yeah, we doubled production back in January. So we went from roughly 200 barrels a year to 400 barrels a year. I mean, that's a drop in the bucket for all the big distilleries, but as craft distilleries go, it's pretty big.
Okay, very cool. Excellent. Well, let's move on to the next one.
Let's do it.
This one is
Duality Double Malt.
This is the double gold.
The double gold for the double malt. You got it.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. You just won this from what? San Francisco Spirits Festival?
You got it. This year's San Francisco World Spirits.
Okay.
And so this is, as far as we can tell, it is the world's first whiskey of its kind. So the first single distillery double malt, where you'll occasionally see. Cheers, by the way.
Oh, cheers! Yeah, definitely. Okay.
You'll occasionally see blended malts from Scotland, where you take, a company is taking a Speyside malt and an Islay malt and blending them, and they might call it a double malt, right?
Okay.
Well, this is a totally different scenario where we're taking 50% malted rye. So remember, this is 100% malted rye. So we're basically 50% of sort of this, and then we're mashing, fermenting, and distilling that malted rye with 50% cherry smoked malted barley, right? So it's basically, as far as we can tell, the world's first malted rye, malted barley combo. And so it's basically like the intersection of a highland, sort of a smoky highland style malt, and that, a nice rye with its robustness.
Wow, that is good. That is really nice.
Nice.
So complex.
A lot of flavor.
Yeah. And it's 44%.
Yeah, we kind of nerded out on the label. So, I mean, we have dual themes everywhere. We went with 88 proof, 44%. We have both a trident and a halo in our pot still emblem up top. We have a, so Justin, our distiller, was like, well, what's duality? And he thought of a snail, because you got soft and hard, right? Well, I had recently read a year ago when we were designing this label, monks back in the Middle Ages would scrawl these little illustrations in the margins of their manuscripts where it was knights fighting snails, like poking fun at chivalry, really.
Let me check this out. This is pretty awesome.
And so we've got a knight fighting a snail, and then little tilting at windmills in the backgrounds for like Don Quixote. And then you probably can't read that unless you're fluent in Scottish Gaelic, because we got an awesome translator from Glasgow. His name is Ian McDonald, to translate I think it's Act 4, I forget. Anyways, of Shakespeare's Macbeth. It's the passage that goes double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, the witch's chant. Okay. So we figured that was basically the most fitting duality quote we could find.
No, that's awesome. No, yeah, I see it. Yeah, I cannot read that, but it is a beautiful label. Yeah, once you start like looking at all the subtleties on it. The tridents. Huh. Cool, man.
Thanks.
I like it. That's one thing, like sometimes labels just, they just surprise me sometimes.
Yeah.
How like in depth and the stories behind them.
Well, what's funny is, so I do our labels, and I spend the bulk of the time on the front, but we also put a lot of effort into like just a cool narrative of how to describe what's going on in the back. I am so guilty of this, and I'm sure almost everyone else is too. I never read the backs of whiskey labels, and I sit there spending hours writing them, So I've gotten a little better about that, actually, giving people the attention on their labels that they deserve.
Absolutely, no, that's really cool. That's really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, this is killer stuff. I could sip on this for a while.
I do.
Yeah,
probably over frequently.
Right. Okay, let's move on to the third.
Yeah. So, as I was talking about earlier, this particular whiskey right here was Justin's liquid resume.
Okay.
So what we're doing with Americanic, this little very difficult to pronounce, only for the bold kind of thing, that actually means American in Scottish Gaelic. That's a Google Translate special. We were just trying to find a brand name and poking around and typed American and saw that it translated that. So we went with it.
Okay.
And the idea is it's going to be a series of limited single malts, right?
Okay.
So This is called Huddled Mashes Number 1. It's the first release, so it's a sort of lighter, fruit-forward, Speyside style malt.
Fantastic.
But we'll also have smokier versions. We've got some single varietals using Maris Otter, which is one of the rare grains that you can brew and distill with. Okay. So we've got a single varietal with Maris Otter. We've got another single varietal. We've got this one. We're going to use a malt from Speyside, and that'll be a totally separate release. So all of these will be different releases, different flavor profiles. This one right here, as I mentioned, we actually are listing all the ways that they differ on the back. So this one is 57% two-row malt, 25% Munich malt, 15% cherry smoked malt, and 3% chocolate malt. Okay. And all of Americanic and Resurgence are aged in new Char 3 typically. Oak barrels, and this is a combination of new and used barrels. Okay. So anyways, enough of the wind up. Let's get to the whiskey.
No, that's interesting.
A little over pour.
So,
have a habit of that.
So, that's one thing I'm kind of interested in. Cheers again.
Cheers.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one too. That's one thing I'm kind of interested in. And maybe for the listeners as well, what does the TTB say about American single malt? What are the specs? You were just
there are none.
There are none.
There are none.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you familiar with the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission?
I am. I'm not, but I am, because I know that they just kind of you reached out. I guess let me say it like this. I don't know exactly how it happened or worked out, but I know that they're fairly new because they're trying to really get something set in place.
Exactly.
So anyway, continue though.
Well, no. So that's what's wild is we've got all of these awesome craft distilleries who are experimenting with all sorts of different ways to make single malts. Right. I mean, in Scotland, traditionally you would use a single variety of malted barley, maybe Golden Promise, right? Okay. And then you would distill it, and a lot of the ways they're getting variation are how long it's being aged and what casks they're finishing it in, right? Okay. Well, here in the US, where craft brewing has informed a lot of, at least it's informed our distiller's approach, it's using multiple varieties of malted barley, so we've got 4 different varieties in this one. Mm-hmm. It's also doing that various finishing methods. And so ultimately, as far as I know, the commission is trying to put in place sort of a system or a set of parameters around what defines an American single malt, just to help it gain a little bit more notoriety, a little bit more understanding. So that said, I mean, in Scotland, it has traditionally been distilled on pot stills, from 100% malted barley at a single distillery, aged no less than 3 years. In the US, it's going to be a little bit different, particularly because in Scotland, oftentimes they're using barrels that have already aged something previously. Right. So a lot of the wood has already been extracted, whereas in the US, if you're using new oak, and particularly if you're in a hot environment that's getting a lot of temperature fluctuations throughout the day, where the wood is going into and out of the pores of the barrel, you're just picking up a lot more wood character in a much shorter amount of time. So right. I don't think there will be a 3-year minimum age requirement for an American single malt if and when the regulations come to pass.
You don't think so? You don't think they'll make it 3 years?
I don't think they would. I mean, there are no other age requirements for any, for bourbon or rye. Yeah. So I don't think they would.
No, I mean, because I mean that's what I just found interesting. I mean, of course, to call vodka has to be neutral base spirit, distilled up to, what is it, 192 proof or something, 190 proof.
190.
Yeah, and then. But yeah, I mean, and then there are some regulations, like in order to call it, it has to be a mash bill of 51% corn in order to call it a bourbon and all that, all that stuff, the aging. But I was like, that's really fascinating. There's nothing really set in place for single malts, but that's going to be, and I guess why do focus on, single malts, I guess, here too? I mean, I guess it's more, you can kind of, I don't know, there's more art in it, I guess.
I would say
more room to blend.
At least for us, it's bourbon. People know what they have an expectation of what bourbon should taste like,
Uh-huh.
and you're kind of in a pretty narrow band of flavor profiles that really are palatable to bourbon drinkers, right? Single malts, however, have a much wider, I guess, taste profile. You got everything from a really fruity or grassy, like lowland or Speyside style malt, all the way to a peat bomb, right? Mm-hmm. So single malts allow a little bit more opportunity to get creative. Also, going back to with Justin, and I know a few other distilleries have craft brewing sort of really enmeshed in their background, their culture. And so that informs a lot of this. And with brewing, oftentimes you're brewing with various malts, and so it's what for example, it's what Justin was really comfortable distilling. So he brought to the table a ton of different really awesome malted recipes. Right. So 100% malted rye here, duality, Americanic, and so he was a little bit less well versed on bourbon, but he's gotten up to speed really quickly on that. So.
Right on. Well, you guys have certainly been killing it with the metal situation too.
Thanks.
That's I haven't even tasted this last one yet. I'm diving in.
Yeah.
Okay, now it says 92 proof, but that does not taste like 92 proof. That is so clean.
Yeah,
it is nice. Yeah. Oh, maybe there a little bit in the end. Sorry. Feel a little bit of the heat hitting your chest, but no, that's like, it almost came off like minty. That was interesting. Minty and fresh, fruity. Yeah.
Exactly. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
It's good hiking whiskey.
Good hiking.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And you see now.
Hydrates you.
Okay. Yes, definitely. Now, what would be the occasion for resurgence?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's like
I would say the occasion for resurgence is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Duality is probably Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
And Americanic is your Saturday and Sunday hikes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
Less flippantly,
Duality.
I mean, this being the boldest and smokiest, I tend to gravitate towards Duality when it's a little cooler.
That's what you'd grab with a cigar.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
Exactly.
I like it.
Americanic, we released it in November, so I haven't had a summer with it, but I'm looking forward to it. And then Resurgence, I mean, not only is it freaking delicious in my opinion, but also it makes a killer Sazerac in Manhattan. So those are my two favorite cocktails. So when I'm in the mood for a cocktail, pulling for that.
Fantastic. Okay. Man, let's. You definitely have a great lineup.
Nice.
Is there anything else you wanted to pull out, or
let's see. We'd have to be mobile. Is that possible, or you want me to go pull it and bring it?
Can you pull it?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, let's try that.
All right. You said you hadn't really had the opportunity to really get into Irish whiskey too much, so this is a triple distilled, sort of traditional. It's modeled after what would be formerly a pure pot still, now a single pot still whiskey from Ireland. So it's 70% malted barley, 30% unmalted barley, green malt, as they call it. And this is cask strength, so this is 108.
It's 108 right now. Well, first off, it does not have the nose of the cask strength. Normally my nose is burning at some point.
Yeah.
It comes across, this is crazy sweet.
Yeah. I think this is going to be our sweetest whiskey.
$108 again, yeah. Wow, that's awesome. No, that's definitely more like an Irish whiskey.
Yeah,
for sure. That's awesome though. Wow, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
That's really fun. What are you guys going to be naming this?
Tough to say. What we wanted to name it
is,
I think, already trademarked.
Oh,
so
okay.
We're looking in a new direction.
Right on. Well, fantastic, man. Well, man, let's wrap this up so you can get some tours coming in through here.
Definitely.
But no, thank you so much, Chad, for having me. This has been a lot of fun. You have a great spot here.
Thanks,
Brian. I'm gonna cruise around. and go get some food. Who's cooking out front, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
You said
So
you do a pop-up every Saturday?
every Saturday we have a pop-up by former Top Chef contestant Kevin Gillespie. So
Okay.
he's got some really awesome restaurants here in town, Revival, and then probably the most well-known is Gun Show.
Okay.
And they've got some Q out there, whole hog barbecue if you want some
Fantastic.
before you head out. Yeah.
Excellent. No, okay, cool. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah. Well, man, again, thanks for everything. This is fun, and
Yeah, right
let's.
on.
I'll be keeping in touch when this next release comes out.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Are you a peaty guy? You like peat?
Yeah.
We also have a heavily peated single malt coming out
Oh, okay.
later this year. So
Fantastic.
we'll have to hook you up.
Okay, definitely. No, I'll have to give me an excuse to come back down to Atlanta.
That's right.
Shit. Cool. Well, again, cheers, dude.
Cheers.
Dude, thanks.
Absolutely.